All right, yo, 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 it's your boy Yoshi Kid Neo, and we are back with another DM Diaries. And today we're going to be going over the latest session, part 7, Your Highness. And this session was pretty much literally just combat the entire session. I think we ended 30 minutes before, or the combat ended 30 minutes before the normal time that we quit, which means that it was about a 2.5 hour combat versus the Royal Griffin, a homebrew creature that was inspired or maybe created straight out of the Witcher series, Witcher 3 particularly, and put into a homebrew collection known as the Book of Beautiful Horrors, which is I linked it in the last the last description for the actual session. I'll do the same thing and I'll link it for this video as well. So yeah, hopefully you can go support the Redditor that created it. Pretty sure it's free, so there's really no reason not to download it unless you just don't like fun monsters to play with. So go ahead and get right into the session breakdown. But first, let's go over what I've done with the landing page here. So I've added a couple different things. I changed the map, so now the map has a little bit updated look to it. I like this, but there's no reason to put like all the detail, all the little symbols and stuff around it, because they can just click on go to world map. It'll take them to the world map where they can see all the pins. The notable NPCs, I like this so far. I most likely will start cycling out of like these guys right here, mainly because they were just introduction. Now they're not really there. Once the party gets to the main city, that's when this will probably start to, become a lot more and more. We've added Joe's new character, known as Three-Toed Jim. Three-Toed Jim is going to be a halfling barbarian, I believe. This is just a stand-in. I believe Kevin is drawing his character, but let's just take a look at Three-Toed Jim here. That's him in the buff, just hanging out. Oh, they updated that. I gotta change that again. Anyway, so that's Three-Toed Jim. That's his new character. And that right there pretty much gives away the summary of this session, is that we had our first player death. 7 sessions into this campaign and someone has died, but in theory they've only had 2 combats so far, which is pretty typical for this group. They are a very roleplay heavy group. They like to talk with the NPCs and with each other more than they do like to go and fight and stuff like that. So what can be said about that is, it's perfectly fine. It makes it to where I make the combats a little more challenging, because if they do more combats in a row, then I'm not going to push them too much. But because of how everything is kind of, I guess, at a slow start, I don't really have many things that are going to be terrorizing the land currently, except for this big-ass griffin. So I wanted to throw this big monster at them, see where they were. And the thing is, so they're level 8. This was a CR 14 creature, which means that it was a deadly encounter for them. And I now know that deadly means that maybe one person is going to die. So now that we know that Three-Toed Jim is here and Cassiel has died, I've made this little graveyard thing. So I've got a journal entry that shows the graveyard. It'll show that the creatures that the party's killed. It'll put a little photo right there. It'll show creatures that are injured, which means they're still around. They're still somewhere out there. And we'll show the allies killed. I don't like this is more just so they can kind of see and keep track of the different things that they fought over the course of time. Otherwise, it doesn't really serve any real purpose. But they all liked the idea of a graveyard, and this was a good way to fill this space right here on the landing page. Quest log is still the same, except for now I've added different text to it. I'm going to change this notable NPCs and probably these two things right here as well to look like the same font. So same thing, they click on this, they can see what quests they are on. They currently only have one quest as the group, and then they all have their individual quests. Then we've also got the party loot, which is a little bag of holding. Trina has a bag of holding, so they can click on this and they can look at all the stuff that's inside of it. Trina is the only one that actually has control over it, so she can take stuff in and out, which very well, you know, works with how the bag of holding is supposed to work. So this is probably going to be a very, very short DM diary. So this was the map. Pretty large map. I gave them plenty of room. I think I gave, yeah, like 500 feet, because the Griffin has a fly speed of 90 feet. So 90 feet, this sucker's cruising. It's going everywhere. If it dashes, it gets through, you know, a little more than a fifth, maybe a fourth. Maybe a third. I don't want to do math right now. So we'll do a calculator. So if we bring the calculator out, we'll just say 515. If it were to dash, it would take it roughly little less than 3 rounds. Actually, it'd probably round to 3 rounds to get from one side of the map to the other, which is something the party cannot do. If they cast a fly spell, maybe. But, so the Griffin, it started out right here. And the reason that matters is, so as you can see with the vision, they can't see shit past this point right here. So with the Griffin being there, they had 2 options. They either wait it out and try to lure it to them, or they go in there, which was my hope that they would just go in there and do that, but they ended up just kind of sitting tight. So I made the Griffin use its speed to get there. The moment that I believe Dr. Thorpe was the closest, he got right there, and the Griffin was moving from side to side in these little hovels right here because the party couldn't see in these 2 particular spots. And I made that on purpose. So if we go to the walls layer right here, you can see all the trees have this little circular wall thing right here. So this is what's blocking the vision. The players cannot see through any of this. That's why when you click on a player, there's all that black streak. So the black streak prevents them from seeing, the creature where it started out. And they took their time. They really just sat in the back here waiting for the creature to make the first move. So when it did make the first move, it was pretty brutal. If we look at the stat block of this bad boy, it has this stunning screech on a recharge of 5 or 6. Essentially what this does is each creature within 20 feet that can hear it. Actually, I think it's each creature within 20 feet. They can hear it. Okay, and it's a DC 18 Constitution. So that means that if the party members had a +0 mod to their Constitution, they have a 10% chance to resist this, which is that's really low. So more than likely, they're gonna get stunned from this thing. And the stunned condition is awful. It's really bad, especially because this one specifically says that they are stunned until the end of the Griffin's next turn. That means that not only are they stunned for this round and they're about to receive a multi-attack, but they're stunned for the next round and they could get another multi-attack. But it really all depended, like the way I have this Griffin, like if you look at it, intelligence is 6, which, you know, for a creature, that's not all too bad. For a predator, intelligence 6 is actually pretty good. Obviously it can't speak or anything, but it's still able to comprehend a lot about the world. But the wisdom of 16 is where this creature really shines, because it is a predator. It knows how to hunt. It knows how to tell if there is somebody else that's worth killing before other folks. And that, in this case, was Cassiel. So when the Griffin came by, it stunned, I believe it stunned everybody, except for Agent J, who wasn't really being much of a threat, so the Griffin didn't really care about him. And Dr. Thorpe, who, the Majestic Presence, one of the legendary actions that it can do, charmed Dr. Thorpe. So now Dr. Thorpe is essentially on the Griffin's side. But luckily, Dr. Thorpe doesn't have anything long range in terms of his spells and stuff. At least I don't think he does. Or maybe he just didn't know that he did. He used his Burning Halo or something like that. Yeah, he didn't have a lot of stuff for, because he's definitely more of a melee combatant. So his positioning was just pretty off for this fight. He was never around in order to do stuff until the very end. When Cassiel had died, Dr. Thorpe was able to get a couple good hits on the Griffin, but the Griffin realized that it was going to lose this battle, so it started to bolt away, and the party decided to leave it alone because they just watched it kill one of their teammates. So what's the point of chasing this thing? It's probably going to kill somebody if they get caught out alone. And what I should have done, or actually what I did try to do, so the multi-attack allows it to attack 4 times. It uses its beak once, its claws twice, its talons once. The talons is where things get dicey. So it grapples the creature and they are restrained, which means now the Griffin has advantage against them, would fly up with them or just fly far away. Maybe use 2 actions to dash to get away from here and start like destroying this person in the woods. It did end up coming to that because of the amount of damage that Cassiel dished out so quickly. So I guess because I've got Cassiel in a compendium, so I gotta import them real quick. So this has to load. But Cassiel, in one round of damage, or one combat round for Cassiel, with two attacks and a bonus action spiritual weapon, he ended up doing over 100 damage to this creature, which is over half of it, or just about half of its health. So with the dynamic of 5 party members fighting this creature and one of them doing that much damage, this creature knew that it was in trouble. So its only real way to somewhat survive this encounter was to kill the person that just wounded it the most, which was also the person that killed its young and did a lot of damage to its baby, and it could smell that. So one thing that there's gonna be a nice little treat for Joe and the rest of the party once they meet Lord Saxon again. He's got a nice little tidbit of information that he's going to give up. And I'm pretty sure it's going to blow Joe's mind. It's probably going to blow all their minds as to what Lord Saxon had in store for them and how he got this Royal Griffin to be manipulated to go fight them here. Because the Royal Griffin came out for blood. It did not come here to hunt. That's what Agent J was trying to do. There was a commoner that was in this cart that was overturned. And he was like, if you release the horses, it might chase them, because that's what it did to mine. It chased my horse and left me alone, but then it came back for the other one. And that was all while the Griffin was waiting. The Griffin picked this spot because it is a good spot where it could get cover, even because it's a large creature. Well, a huge creature technically. So you can see how large it is, so it needs plenty of coverage. So it picked the forest path, which is, that's its wisdom coming into effect. It knows how to hunt. Obviously, being in a plains area, it doesn't have the ability of surprise on a moving target, especially 5 moving targets. So this was its plan all along. But Lord Saxon manipulated this whole thing. And Joe, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love exactly what Lord Saxon did. And I don't know if you saw it coming or if it's going to blow your mind, but you're going to love it either way. So the Griffin, it it pretty much took Cassiel out in one round. Let's see if I can bring up his page yet. Here's Cassiel. So Cassiel had 67 HP, and the Royal Griffin was able to do all of that damage in a single round. Now Cassiel has a pendant, a homebrew magical item that I created for him that's essentially a Find Familiar that has an added buff of either being able to use its HP as like a lay on hands for the party, or it can switch spots with somebody or with Cassiel the moment he takes a hit. Pretty much like it's the creature's reaction. The moment Cassiel is about to take a hit, it can react, Misty Step, Teleport Swap, and it'll take the hit for him. So the first hit from the Griffin, Cassiel did that, which is very smart. I mean, this is a big beast. I wouldn't wait for multiple hits to connect before doing that. But unfortunately, the Griffin having the fly speed of 90, it was able to just get right back up to Cassiel. It got to Cassiel, who was stunned as well. He had succumbed to the stunning screech. So he's stunned, which means all the Royal Griffin's attacks are at advantage. So then it did its 2 claw attacks, and it did its talons. I believe it brought Cassiel to 6 HP. No, it brought him to 7 HP. I remember because then the Griffin took Cassiel, since he had him grappled, flew 60 feet up in the air, which was the remaining movement, and dropped him. So because he dropped him, he had to take, for every 10 feet that you fall, you take 1d6 of fall damage. So he had to take 6d6. And the reason it was funny is because Joe was like, the only way to survive this is if you roll all ones. I did not roll all ones. I believe I rolled 17 damage from that 6d6. So Cassiel got knocked out. So the party is watching this happen. They see the Griffin flying up in the air, drop Cassiel, and they watch as he kind of like takes in a breath, and he just lays there. So they know that he's on death's door. He's got to start making death saves. What ended up happening was the Griffin at this point started using its legendary actions to fly. So it can fly without provoking opportunity attacks, and it's got 90 feet. So it started to fly close to the other stunned targets. And it would sit there and wait for its turn to come around before it could start beating the shit out of people. And the party were using everything they could. They were using Misty Step. They were using Thunder Step. They were getting the hell out of there. They were disengaging. They did not want to be around this creature. But with Cassiel's damage, they brought this thing down to where it was less than a quarter of its HP. So they could have probably gone balls to the wall and killed it, but because they were more interested at and it makes sense, right? It just brought down Cassiel, who dished out 100 plus damage. If Cassiel can't kill it that fast, why would the rest of them be able to, if they're not even able to? I don't think any of the other ones are built to where they could do that much damage right now. Joe's a really good character creator, so he's got that on him. Jeff is literally just following a guide that he found online. I don't know what, I don't think it's meant for combat at all, actually. It's meant for more roleplay encounters, so he's kind of out of the loop. Dr. Thorpe is a melee combatant, and he was never anywhere near the Royal Griffin. Agent J was just using fire spells, which, as we can see right here, the Royal Griffin is immune to fire. And I'm pretty sure he did 3 or 4 attacks that were fire, and each time I told him, I was like, it looks like it did no damage at all. He's like, cool, I do the same shit. Still looks like it did no damage, but he kept doing it. And he's trying to portray Agent J as having no clue about the fantasy world. And I think what he wants one of the party members to take him aside and be like, hey man, we need to teach you some shit, because wherever you're from, fire may work all the time. Here, it does not. I'm pretty sure fire is actually one of the worst damage types because of how many creatures and how many creatures are either resistant or immune to it. There's not very many that are vulnerable to it, but there's plenty that are resistant or straight up immune, and this is one of those creatures. Trina was pretty much stuck in a stun loop the whole game. She was able to get a couple of her spells off, but she rolled really pitiful damage, unfortunately, with her Eldritch Blast. So, you know, it is what it is. They tried to polymorph it into a turtle so they could relocate, but that didn't work. I think it rolled one above what the spell DC was. So as it's flying around and realizes that, okay, now they're trying to get me, I need to get out of here. But first, I'm going to take my revenge. It used its last legendary action to fly right by Cassiel. And it did this because on its next turn, it used its multi-attack, and it just beat the ever-living shit out of Cassiel, and then started to fly way far away. And there was nothing the party could do. I believe Dr. Thorpe and Lloyd, they would have been able to save Cassiel with some sort of healing to where he could at least take another attack or two. But they were too busy doing their own thing instead of going to heal, which D&D, the one thing that's, you know, kind of bad about healing is that it's literally just to bring you back up so you're not making death saves. But my death saves carry over until you do a long rest, so it didn't even matter. If Cassiel did have 2 death saving throws failures, so if they would have brought him back and he would have dropped and then take another attack, he would have been dead regardless. But, you know, a multi-attack of 4 on a down character is almost 100% death. So, creature flew away. The party let him go, or let her go rather, and then they buried Cassiel. But before that, they gathered around, and Uriel, which is it looks like I can't show this token because Uriel doesn't exist right now. So Uriel right here is the Archangel of Judgment, which was Cassiel's backstory. He's essentially the one that put him on this quest to go and do good in the world. So Uriel came down in a nice, brilliant light and started to talk to the characters about Cassiel may be dead here, but he's got more of a purpose now. He has shown the compassion, especially for those that he doesn't agree with their motives or morality or morals. So they've given Cassiel a job to do in the afterlife, essentially. So my plan is to make sure that Cassiel pops in at some point in time in the future. Just because you're dead in the prime material plane doesn't mean you're dead elsewhere. Your soul obviously goes on unless it's been captured or eaten or something. But because of his patron being an archangel and having the power to do so, Cassiel is in the outer planes, more in the upper planes actually. And more than likely there will be something. It depends, I guess, on how long the party goes for doing what they're doing. But Cassiel might make an appearance as an NPC. We'll see. I don't know exactly how I'm going to play it, but that's my intention. And I'm sure Joe would love that. To see his character come back and do something really cool. Maybe we can do like a one-shot and Cassiel's leading them and they're all angels or something like that. Level 20. I don't know. I've wanted to do like a level 20 one-shot for a while, so I've got some things that I'm planning that would essentially affect the world, but we'll see. So Cassiel's dead. He had a nice little going away, essentially. So if you watch the last 30 minutes of the last session, which was part 7, you'll see. I don't think it was very emotional in terms of like the party didn't feel that connection to Cassiel because, you know, they've only been around for 7 sessions together and they just had a falling out. So, you know, they were obviously saddened by it, but they weren't like, man, I have to do something. Not like how it was with the last campaign between Quinn and Saberwolf when Saberwolf died. Like, Quinn and Saberwolf were pals. They were really good friends that went way back. So when Saberwolf died, and it was because of the actions of the party, that's when Quinn started to take a turn for the worse. So they role played that the death and the going away very well. Uriel allowed Cassiel to come back in a sort of semi-spirit form to say goodbye to the party and wish them well before ultimately leaving the Prime Material plane. And then the party gathered together. They got back on their wagon. Lloyd went to go try to find the other horse that the commoner had, freed, to see if the Griffin would go and take care of it. And the commoner, by the way, is a man. It's not a woman. This is a very deceptive token. I need to change my commoner tokens, but the commoner is a man that has a very, very frail daughter with him who is essentially just in a coma. He also has a black flower in a vial that he said that he needs to bring to a certain location in order to bring her back. But he's going to delve into that story at the beginning of next session. So that'll be happening Wednesday. There's not really much else to talk about with this session. It was a pretty cut and dry, combat. It was pretty much all in this square right here. Yeah, Cassiel died, but Joe's looking more forward to bringing in another character, I think, to aid in the lack of a party dynamic since they were all spellcasters and they had no frontliner. So should be good. It'll be a welcome change, and his backstory it's so good. I love it. I can't wait to go into the details about what it is that Three-Toed Jim has to do, and it's going to be great. So thanks for coming out and watching this episode of the DM Diaries. We play on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and we hope that you come by to see us there. And until then, peace.